Thank you very much, Anne and Mira, and thank you also, Mark Blaish. I was thinking as I walked around that I really wish that this had existed 10 years ago when I started Homestars, and it's really amazing how much things have changed in the last decade for people that are thinking about starting a business. So it's really exciting to be here and talk about my journey. So I was thinking as I was writing this, putting myself in your shoes and thinking that many of you may be thinking of starting a business, or you've already started one. So last December, the Government of Canada did a report that said that the Canadian economy has just over 1 million employer-owned businesses. 98% of those are small businesses, under 100 employees. In fact, I'm sure if they dissected it more, it would be probably under 10 employees would be still the vast majority. So that leaves only about 20,000 companies in Canada that are medium and 3,000 that are large. So I was working for one of those large companies before I started Homestars. And every year, 80,000 people start a business. And about the same number of companies close. So new ones start and about the same amount close. So I want to tell you a story about somebody I knew that had a big corporate career, and they left great pay, options, company car, and they started their own business. When they described their idea to me, it sounded amazing. However, in their very first year, they were threatened with a defamation lawsuit. They were raising money. They secured a term sheet from a venture capitalist in Toronto, and they could not close it. So during that time, they also found somebody to build their website, a junior technologist, if you will, a superstar whiz kid from Queens in computer science, who had already built a similar idea in a different space. But then they found out that they were working 2 jobs. That whiz kid was working not only with them, but another company. So when my person that I knew confronted them, that whiz kid left and did not do the work they promised. The other part of the story is that person's spouse lost their stable job of 7 years in the second year of that person starting their business. In the 3rd year, they lost their mother to cancer, and also they were stretched thin when they launched in 2 cities. They ran out of money, and finally they didn't start paying themselves, but in year 4, they started to finally pay themselves a small salary. So when you hear that story, you probably say, like I did, gee, would you pack it in? I think I would have at the time. But that's not the full story. The good news is that person kept going. They believed in their idea. They knew it had potential to really have an impact on the industry and the consumers it was serving. And really, at the end of the day, it was perseverance and that belief that drove them. And that person is actually me. So 10 years ago, I started Homestars, which is now Canada's leading website for homeowners who want to hire and find the most reputable home improvement company. But if you look at that bare bones story, you might think, gosh, was it really worth all that grief? I call this talk my 10-year overnight success, because I think we all have this preconceived notion that great ideas will quickly gain traction. Think Uber, Facebook, there's countless. Like, I used Uber coming down here. And I remember when Facebook first started and I started using Yelp. Trust me, Homestars was no overnight success. It's been 10 years in the making, and I'm still learning every single day. But I'd like to share some of the lessons I've learned along the way, and I really want to focus on the early years. And at the end, I would like to open up for questions, and I'd be happy to talk about current learnings. But I think it's really important to talk about the early years when you're starting a business, because you're wearing many, many hats. So through those points that I mentioned when I opened up, I really had to understand defamation and libel law in Canada right away and figure out the best way forward to manage processes and best practices to protect homeowners and ourselves, the company, from litigious companies that wanted to sue over bad reviews. Now, forget about that VC funding that I was trying to chase, because I did chase that for quite some time. But the good news is I raised almost $500,000 through several angel investors. Amounts like $5,000, $10,000 from family and friends, and then more established angel investors. Several of them would write checks from $20,000, $30,000 to $50,000. So I was able to take that loss of that term sheet from the venture capitalist and instead close an angel round. And that got me started in 2007 with really investing in the business. I was also able to hire a very trustworthy CTO who was able to work with me. In fact, initially we decided we would date for 3 months. And so that was also a really good lesson. Really dating, both of us decided we would, he was a contractor, and we really worked side by side building the site together and really getting to know each other and what our beliefs were and how we worked. Because ultimately, when you're getting involved with partnerships, you really want to know those people very, very closely, and you want to know that you're on the same page with your vision. So the good news was that we ended up getting that site up and running. Well, I nearly ran out of money. I did have a small sales team. I was very focused on getting revenue in the door. And I was able to close another round of financing in 2009 to stay afloat and focus on Toronto. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about focus a little bit later. My husband found another great job, and we just buckled down while I wasn't making any money, and we cut down our expenses and literally bootstrapped our own household. And that also taught me a lot about what I really wanted to do. So life went on, and I realized that I could really make a go of it after having gone through so much difficult bumps in those early years. So it's to tell you how I can impart some lessons that hopefully will help you as you shape your thinking about what you want to do. I had not fathomed the kind of commitment that it would take to start a business, and that's why I want to share those thoughts with you. And I'm going to share a few more stories along the way. One of my favorite books is Jim Collins' Good to Great. And Good to Great is really, in essence, looking at the best companies in the world, the world-class companies, and how their trajectory of growth, not over 1 year, but over sustainable years, 10, 15, 20 years. And the opposite of that is good companies. And so when I looked at that book, I really resonated with me, because I only read it about 4 or 5 years ago, that getting the right people on the bus is one of the earlier chapters, and it's an absolutely important part of getting your business off the ground. In a large company, underperformers can fly under the radar for years, and the company's performance won't suffer too greatly. But in a very small company, even 50 people, which is what HomeStars is now, one person can be very disruptive culturally if they're not a fit. And in some senior executives, they can really, get you off track strategically. In fact, at one point, we were almost insolvent again later on in our lifetime, because at that point we really didn't have somebody with the financial acumen, because I certainly came from a marketing background, but I wasn't building cash flow statements by myself. So I had to learn a lot about some of these difficult decisions about what type of people we need on the team. So keeping the goals laser focused and having the right people are the kind of two themes I want to talk about. The part about the focus is that you get ideas thrown at you all the time. And it's easy to grab onto some of them and think that they're going to be the magic bullet that's going to take you to the next step. But so many ideas can really dilute the focus that you really want to do. And another part of Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, is the hedgehog chapter. And I used that 3-4 years ago to for a strategic planning offsite with my team. And it really, really helped get everybody grounded on what we felt. A, the hedgehog has 3 circles. So A, what are we passionate about? What do we think we can be the best in the world at? And what drives our economic engine? So those 3 concentric circles form the hedgehog. And the fable about the hedgehog is that the hedgehog gets up every day and focuses on the food and the things it needs to do and successfully gets from A to B. And the fox is constantly trying to chase the hedgehog. And as soon as the fox, which darts and thinks of all the cool strategies and the great things it can do to capture the hedgehog, as soon as it gets close to the hedgehog flips and turns into a ball with its spikes out and protects itself. And again, the fox loses and goes its own way. So the hedgehog is laser focused and very, very simple in its life. So that chapter of Jim Collins' book, those 3 things boil down for Homestars, our own exercise. And as we keep talking about our hedgehog, we evolve it. What are we passionate about? Well, we're passionate about helping homeowners. What are we going to be great at? Well, we're focused on Canada, so we're not focused on conquering the world, but we can absolutely be the best in Canada at connecting homeowners through our most trustworthy content that is growing and built with very strong strategic review moderation platform that we've built. And our economic model is built on the lifetime value of the companies that pay us. We don't want just any companies, we want the best companies. So it's by articulating that over and over again and as a leadership team, as managers, and as we bring on new employees, it really helps us get our focus. Now I'm going to go way back to the very early stage about people, because partners, and I talked about the fellow that I dated before when I was building the website, but even before that, becoming an entrepreneur was really a big decision for me. I had the idea of Homestars in early 2000 when I started doing major renovations on my home. And I thought, wow, it's a really big process, even a small project, because I had no clue where to start. And so there, as Anne said, there was word of mouth at the time, and it still is the best source. I firmly believe, friends and family provide great sources of excellent home service providers and trades. But at the time, that was it, and there was the phone book. So I was in an intense job at Kraft. I was category director of their refrigerated cheese business. Think Cracker Barrel, Cheese Whiz, Singles, and Philadelphia cream cheese. And my husband and I spent several months just planning the renovation. There wasn't even a nail put in the wall, just planning, thinking about what we wanted to do to a house that was 60 years old and hadn't had anything done to it for over a decade. In fact, when we moved in, the appliances didn't work, none of them. And the kitchen doors were falling off. So we really had to think about all the different things, and we had a limited budget. So when I thought about Homestars, I was really thinking, gee, there's all sorts of ideas that consumers could have. There could be kitchen renovation, tips and planning, and how to all the different resources you could think about to even get going. But I really wanted a solution that was a bigger pain point for me, and that was where I landed on who to hire. And actually, my inspiration came from TripAdvisor. TripAdvisor was launched in 2000, and it was just starting to get it certainly wasn't a household name like it is today, but people were starting to talk about it and using it to find great hotels and resorts. And I thought, the best way to know if somebody's good is what their past clients think. So reviews, I thought would be a great idea. And I did a lot of research into, with all my training on in packaged goods, understanding consumer insights, I felt, gosh, there was nobody in the home improvement space spending thousands of dollars, tens of thousands, researching what companies, what they should have as credentials and what their work was before we go and spend, tens of thousands of dollars on our home. So I definitely felt it was a big idea. But the story has to do with the partners that became involved. I had two very close friends, Mary and Heather, who were also doing work on their homes, and they also thought this was a great idea. I thought the idea of working with partners was the best, especially good friends, because you're pouring your whole soul into this, and it's just, for me, it felt better to have partners that I cared about and I thought were highly competent. I'd worked with them. And so we started doing market research while we were at home, and I was on my maternity leave at the time, so I was really into this idea. And at the time, we had a whole year that was just started. It was 2003, 2 young babies. So the whole idea of giving up the corporate, rigmarole, bureaucratic decision-making was really exciting. But after a few months of on and off again work, we landed on the idea of creating a book, a directory of sorts, with listings of companies to hire and tips of what to look for. We would sell ads in the directory to make money. In fact, there was a children's directory at the time that sold in neighborhood bookstores and little grocery stores. And Mary knew somebody who knew the 2 ladies that founded this book, this help guide for new parents. But I wasn't really sold on this idea, because I was thinking much, much bigger, and I wanted to create a website as well. And as I mentioned, I had really thought that TripAdvisor was my inspiration. But my partners disagreed. They heard from the founders of this children's book that selling ads to companies with bad reviews would just be impossible. So I was getting actually kind of nervous, because I really wasn't sold on their idea, and we still hadn't finalized a business plan. And certainly all of us had written business plans. We all had that training. So after much discussion, I decided to go back to craft. And I was miserable, because I put a lot of thought into this idea. I was sick to my stomach, actually, because I really believed in the idea of setting up a review website. But Mary and Heather were absolutely against it. So I said, well, you go and build on this book and evolve the business plan. I need to make my income. I need to, continue my career. And so I left it at that. So after a few months, Mary and Heather, I had to confront them, because I just couldn't let this idea sit. I noticed that they weren't progressing the idea, and nothing wrong with that, because, it's a lot of work to start a business. But I really wanted to pursue this, and so confronting them was really hard for me. So each of us had already at that point set up a shareholders agreement. We'd done some market research, we'd done some prototypes, we'd done some legal stuff, so we spent about $3,000–4,000 already. So when I approached them, finally Mary said, you know what? I really just, want to do this book, but I'm not keen to do it by myself. And then Heather said, I just want to work part-time. But when I told them I really wanted to do the reviews site, they said, you know what, go for it. We'll resign and let you just take it on. So we remained friends, but I guess it was a really, really big learning for me, because I was so uncomfortable. I couldn't sleep at night. That really finding out what everybody's vision was for the business was fundamentally important. And even another learning was getting in partnership with people that have the same skill sets is not a good idea. You really want to carve out and have distinct skill sets when you go into business. So when you're talking about going into business with potential partners, you really want to date for a while And you really want to start thinking about it. Are you starting a business for a lifestyle? Do you want to spend more time with your family? You want to work at home? What kind of income do you need? Or are you really looking at building something bigger, something where you're really willing to focus and invest a lot of time and energy and potentially sacrifice for the short term and not make money for a while? So of course, that's not what everybody wants, but, and I didn't know at the time that I would have to make huge sacrifices, but I knew I wanted something big, and I knew I wanted to make Homestars into a multi-million-dollar business. Because I believed and I knew that people were spending, even 10 years ago, $40 billion on their home. And that could be maintenance, repairs, this is annually. It can be, the new kitchen that you want and those expensive cabinets and countertops. But we Canadians are spending a lot of money, and we don't have, at the time, we did not have the tools and resources. And I still think there's tons of opportunity to continue to evolve the industry. So I resigned from Kraft in 2004, and you're saying, well, you started Homestars in 2006. Well, another part of this early journey, because it was really different for me to be an entrepreneur, and that's why I want to share that story. I've actually never written this down before, but I put a lot of thought into why I want to share that, because I'm not a typical entrepreneur. I had worked 13, 14 years in a corporate environment, and really starting something with a blank piece of paper, an idea, was a big change for me. So when I resigned, Kraft didn't want me to resign, so they offered me a part-time role. I thought, great, I can start my Homestars idea and make money from Kraft. Fantastic. Well, not so good. A year later, my idea still hadn't progressed. So the lesson there is, doing two jobs, starting a business and doing another job is really hard. I know some people that have done it, but you're gonna definitely slow down your progress. I definitely know peers at the time thought I was crazy for leaving my very successful career. But I went ahead and I finally got the site launched in January of 2006. Ironically, I also, and you'll laugh, I launched a book. and this is something I just dredged out of a bookshelf. It's, pretty ancient. But the reason behind it is I thought that it was a great marketing tool for real estate agents. So do the print run. In fact, it says more than 2,000 consumer reviews. It's just for Toronto. So our first website, we took all the reviews that we got, and we went to home shows. That's how we started aggregating reviews. We actually went to home shows, and I couldn't even afford They didn't even have Wi-Fi at the time. So I had to have an HTML site, and in some cases, paper, to get those reviews written down by homeowners, and then we type them in and upload them to the database. So that book was obviously not a good idea. Real estate agents didn't really grab onto that, and so we had to, again, refocus and really focus on one product, the website. And I remember at the time, the two ladies that were selling for me were really, really upset. They thought it was going to just completely tank our business because we were selling ads in the book as well as the website. But fortunately it didn't, because we believed in online, and we had a compelling story to tell our advertisers, and we went forward with that and pursued one product, and it was the right move. So the next theme I talk about, partners, is focus. So I mentioned we raised $500,000 in 2007, and we launched in 2 markets. We launched in Toronto, and we actually launched in Boston. And even up until like 3 years ago, I would get asked, so how's Boston going? And really, not well, because we went in, and my rationale for going into the US was we really wanted to raise, after that first $500,000, we wanted to raise a venture round. And what better place to do it than the US, where there was a lot more access to capital at the time. So I hired a marketer in Boston. We had somebody in Toronto. We did more home shows. At the time, Angie's List was in the market, and you had to pay to get on Angie's List. So it was a perfect positioning. HomeStars is Angie's List, but free. But in the end, we failed. And I'm telling you this story because focus is really hard. You think you're being focused, but we weren't. We did not have the resources to launch in 2 markets. And especially the learning should be, if you're gonna go into one market, make sure you've got great traction before you go and invest in another market. So I really felt that's an important lesson that I carry with me. And it actually caused us to run out of money in 2008. So that was a tough year to run out of money. That was the sub-mortgage crisis. It was very difficult to raise money in 2009. So I'm still standing here telling you this story, so you know I survived, but not without a lot of sacrifice. So that was another lesson. Interestingly enough, I was so passionate about my idea. I even pitched it, by the way, to Steve Coffer he's the CEO of TripAdvisor, when I was down in Boston at that home show. So I managed to get an interview with him, did my pitch deck, and he was really complimentary. At the end of the day, though, he took that deck and he said his thank you. He got up and he put that in the recycle bin and walked me out the door. So it was a great lesson, and really, continuing to hone and pitch, and I knew I had to really get traction. So the hedgehog focus for me has been a constant. There's been periods of time where our reviews have softened, and back to basics. Why are the number of reviews submitted down? And we dig in. We've got somebody now that's owning that and is reporting on that key performance indicator regularly. And we launched various programs like a star reviewer, very much like the Yelp Elite and the TripAdvisor, where you get badges for contributing more. So we actually don't publish how to get those badges because we really don't want people gaming reviews. And so there's a lot of secret sauce to how we've evolved our review processes and how we've evolved our moderation processes to weed out fake reviews. The other part, back to people, is establishing a culture. So as you grow, one of the things I wish I'd done at the very, very beginning was really establish, I had my core beliefs, but really write them down and get alignment with the people that I was working with. I think, if you take away anything from today, when you're starting something, people drive everything. They drive all the goodness, and they can also drive some of the negative of running a business. And culture is really important. And so really establishing what we believed in, and I did that again with that exercise with our leadership team, and also the broader employee group 4 or 5 years ago was a really great way of ingraining what we believed in, and as we bring in new people, we can talk about our cultural beliefs, which are the foundation of how we do business. So trust is an obvious one. If you're a review site and you can't trust the content, and you don't care every single day about the content on your site, you're not going to have a business that survives. We have 3 other core beliefs. One is respect. And really, it sounds like a cliche, but really treating everybody as you would want to be treated is really important, particularly when you've got 2 stakeholders, contractors and homeowners. And we often get stuck in the middle. A company might blame us for that bad review, or that homeowner might blame us for asking them to validate that they in fact hired the company that they wrote the review on. So we really treat each other with a high amount of respect, and all our stakeholders. Communication is our third, and that really bore out because we were remote for many, many years. It wasn't until 3-4 years ago that we moved into an office downtown. And actually, we still have 20 people that work remotely. So communication is so important. And I think everybody loves the idea of working at home. We have really flexible arrangements for people that need to work at home sometimes. But there's a big benefit when you get larger to bring people together. And the last one is accountability. So, as I said before, every single person can have a major impact on the business. Oh, I've got to wrap up. Is it 15? 5. So I'm gonna. I think I've kind of covered some of the big learnings. The last couple years, I'll just say we've invested a lot in the infrastructure, and that's been a lot of learning for us. So I'm just going to finish off with telling you that don't be afraid of starting a business if you've got absolute passion for something, because that's really important, because you're going to get up every single day. Even on the weekends, I get up on the weekends and I think about the business and how I can be better. And if you've got the skills that you think will really drive the business, of course you're going to want to have people around you with different skills that are going to help you. If you've got those two things, skills and passion, and you're prepared to work your ass off, call that perseverance, you've got a great formula for success. So thank you very, very much, and I'd love to open it up for questions.